So everyone, welcome to today's class in creative writing with a focus on plot and setting, which basically means that we're going to look at what is going to happen in your stories and where does it all take place. So that would be your backbone. That's what we're looking at today. So yes, strap in, sit back, and take some notes. First of all, we have the plot. What happens in your story? That is what the plot is. So, and it's usually how the events in the story are organized. So, what happens first? What comes afterwards? And so on and so on. And where does it all end? And this is usually influenced by the actions of your characters. What happens along the way? What do they do to drive the story or the plot forward? That is the gist of your plot. So, I'm going to give you a very, very compressed example here. And as you can see, the man here in front of you, his name is Bilbo Baggins. And he's a very prominent character in the Lord of the Rings series. Yeah. The Lord of the Rings consists of three books, as you might know. It's the Fellowship of the Ring, it's the Two Towers, and the Return of the King, if I'm not mistaken. And the plot for every book has its own plot, but for the entire story, you can say that there is like one major plot here, all right? So, and this is a very, very compressed example. So basically, it all starts out with like a prehistory of the rings and where they ended up. There were many rings, and who were they given to? We can also see where we are in the story is the fantasy world and stuff like that. And then suddenly it cuts to like more contemporary day, like today, what happens, where Bilbo has the ring. The ring is then found and it has to be destroyed so that Sauron, the Lord of Evil, does not come back. Um, and this ultimately leads to the destruction of the ring. That is a very, 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 very compressed version of the plot of the Lord of the Rings. And some people would criticize me for doing it like that, but that is just to give you guys an example. Like, all right, we see that something happens in the beginning, someone has a ring, and it has to be destroyed. It gets destroyed. That's the plot, basically. And a lot of other things happen in between with the characters and different actions that happen. There are wars and fights and conflicts and crises. And we'll get to those kind of things later and characters, but they come now. Right now, we're just focusing on plot and setting. So that's basically what the plot would be. All right, let's carry on. So we have the setting. Where does everything take place? So is it in a country? Which country? Is it fictional? That would mean, is it for real? Is something that's made up? If you look at Lord of the Rings, in the backstory, you get like you see where the setting is because you're in this kind of where it's kind of medieval that people are fighting with bows and arrows and swords. But then you see elves and dwarves, so then you know, all right, this is a fantasy world, and you get the setting kind of a lot from that. And then you need to see at what time is this today? Is it medieval times? Is it in the future? And how? And then the important thing is how do you explain all of this in your story without just making it into a list, so that you're not just answering a question that, oh, this is a story that takes place in the Middle Ages in Sweden in a region around where Stockholm would be today. Like, no, no, no. Get away from that because you want to try to weave these things in when you like you want to paint a picture for your reader. Like if you just think about the Lord of the Rings example, then either you just if you look at the films, I'm taking them as the example right now, but when you look at the films, nobody says that this is a fictional world. Nobody says exactly what kind of year it would be or what kind of setting it would be. This is all explained through what is seen, or if you read the books, through what is written. It is explained to you, but not explicitly. It's not thrown at you. It's more implicit that you read and then you understand, okay, this is how it is. That's what you want to do with setting, yeah? So, moving on to some examples of what a setting could be. It could be Victorian London, as you see the picture here. Or is it the 24th century on the planet of Mars? Or is it an unknown tropical island in the 1960s? That is up to you. You create whatever world you want to create. But these are just examples. So let's move on. How would you work with this? So this is how I would do it. I'd recommend you guys to start. So in the center here on the screen, you can see that I've written Victorian London. All right, so that would be my first, that's my setting. All right, where do I go from this? Okay, so if you go to the right, then you see Victorian London. Yeah, that means it's 19th century. And if you keep going further, then yeah, then it's England. And good, then we're getting the setting. And all right, so I know where I am, at what time I'm at. All right, then I want to look at, is there any other details I want to add? Oh, it's going to be in the winter. Good, then we add that. And then I want to see, so what is going to happen? What is the plot going to be about? So now I've just started here. And that's where you see the question marks. So up, you can see that I've written a murder. So basically, there's going to be a murder in Victorian London, which would be 19th century England, in the winter. All right. And from a murder, what happens? What happens from there? What's going to happen? Is it going to be a murder that's just going to end up with someone going to jail in the end? That's up to you. How would you write your story? And the reasoning behind that there's a question mark to the left of the Victorian London is basically just because what do you want to add in here to make it seem more relevant for you guys? So, this is basically the first lesson in creative writing. And now that I will see you guys in class, then you will be working with this, creating a mind map of your own little world that you're going to write about. So this is where your story starts. I'll see you guys in class. Good luck.